Hello. This is a homily for the Feast of the Epiphany, and you'll notice that the readings follow very much the same direction as the readings for the Christmas Mass during the day, when instead of hearing about the baby child, we hear more about the movement, if you like, of this great event out into world history. And so here you have today the reading from Isaiah chapter 60, and it's a celebration of Jerusalem that Isaiah is putting out there. Rise up in splendor, your light has come. In other words, after all the dark times, and it describes the dark times of the earth in dramatic words. Darkness covers the earth, and thick clouds cover the peoples. In other words, they're lost. They really don't know what is going to happen next. But upon you the Lord shines, and over you appears his glory. Glory always being the sign of the divinity. Now we get to this internationalizing of this little event that has happened in one little tiny stable. Nations shall walk by your light, and kings by your shining radiance. Here is the oft-repeated term that has already been part of Judaism for a long time, that something special is happening in Israel. And this, in fact, is a message and a truth for all the nations of the earth. Raise up your eyes and look about, because you will see your sons and daughters coming in to Jerusalem. Then you shall be radiant at what you see, and it talks about all the wealth that will pour in, spiritual wealth as well as the riches of the sea. And interestingly, dromedaries all from Sheba shall come, bearing gold and frankincense. Gold as the sign of the gift to the king, traditional in many cultures as the best gift to give to the king, and then frankincense, which is the way that one offers praise to God himself. And so these gifts are going to come, and we've got to wait a little while to learn more about who they come to. The Psalm 72, picks up the themes that I've just mentioned. Lord, every nation on earth will adore you. Now, this is not politically correct. Since the 60s, there has been a lot of effort to try and flatten the whole missionary idea of the church. But in fact, people are still recruited as missionaries, joining missionary orders and missionary diocesan groups, and still going and carrying the gospel. Now, they may be carrying the gospel into deprived areas in their own country, or they may be going to other countries who have never heard about the gospel of Jesus Christ. The gifts that are given to the king are things like judgment, being able to govern with justice, and we start to hear the idea of a king who's going to govern all and who is going to bring justice. And this is not our earthly understanding of justice, where one law can be put in place to get at people of another, one particular group, and then this group gets into power and they put in a law that gets at that group, kind of the weaponizing of the legal system. Here we're talking about justice that comes down from God. He designed the world, he created the world, and he knows how this world can get best function. And so you have this idea that the king, the real king, the universal king, Jesus Christ, ultimately, will be endowed with this ability to bring this justice to the world. Justice shall flower in his days. Kings of Tarshish and the isles shall offer gifts again. All the different exotic kingdoms, Arabia, Seba, All kings shall pay him homage, and all nations shall serve him. Very interesting book. If you're interested in where this could go, look at Before Church and State, a book that explains what one kingdom looked like when the king took these teachings seriously. Catholic King Louis IX, known as Louis the Pious, and later canonized as Saint Louis. And look how the kingdom operated. And it is a really amazing description of a nation working under the laws of God. Lastly, we have in the last verse, he shall rescue the poor, he shall rescue the afflicted, he shall have pity on the lowly, and he will save the lives of the poor. This is expanding. I mean, this verse could almost have been written by St. Luke, the evangelist. Here you have the expansion now, not of a king in the ordinary sense of kingship, the common sense of kingship, let's say, but rather a king who is literally caring in all ways for all peoples. And this, of course, is going to be realized par excellence in Jesus Christ. In the letter to the Ephesians, you have Paul saying that he has been given the stewardship of God's grace. In other words, he's only a steward compared to all the kings that we've been hearing about now. But what he is to do is to make known a revelation that wasn't known by other generations. And the message of this steward is that, and these are the last two lines of the reading, the Gentiles are co-heirs, members of the same body, co-partners in the promise of Christ Jesus through the gospel. Here you have the universalism that is the concern of the scriptures and was already a concern in the Old Testament and now is realized in Jesus Christ. Hence the great, and literally great, massive efforts at missionary work all through the centuries with, as I say, that serious hiccup in the 60s and 70s when people who thought they knew everything thought that there was no need for missionary work. And actually, there is. Lastly, in the Gospel, you have the story of the Magi. You know that story well enough. They come and ask Herod, where is this new king who has been born? And the chief priests, the scribes, tell Herod that it's guaranteed to happen in Bethlehem in the land of Judah. From you shall come a ruler who is to shepherd my people Israel. So here you have the announcement of this ruler. Shepherd being a word that is being played on a little bit because the kings were quite often known as the shepherd kings in the Old Testament. And of course they had great herds or great flocks. So here you have shepherd in a almost transcendent sense, if you tie it up with what we saw in the responsorial psalm, that this shepherd is going to look after the poor, the sick, those who are suffering injustice, and so forth. They then go following this star, this sign of heavenly intervention, and there will be another sign of heavenly intervention as well in the journey of the Magi, where they are told in a dream, don't go back through Jerusalem. And so they went back another way. But back to the crib, the nativity, if you like. They saw the child with Mary, his mother. They prostrated themselves. So these representatives from exotic nations and cultures who originally had nothing to do with Israel had come to Bethlehem in the land of Judah, and they prostrate themselves, the ultimate gesture of submission. And they do homage to him, which is only done to a divine king. And then they open their treasures. We've heard about the gifts the treasures being bought a couple of times already in the readings, and they offer gifts of gold, as I said, the suitable gift for a king, and recognized then universally as the gift. Frankincense, which is recognized widely as being the way that one offers or accompanies one's prayers with a symbolic gesture. And we still use the incense today in the solemnities and feasts at the liturgy, so that literally, taking the words out of Isaiah, that our words will rise to heaven like incense. And lastly then, and this is the added gift, myrrh, something that is used, a spice, that is used to prepare a body for burial. Nothing else is mentioned at this point, but here already the little tiny hint that this child is going to die. Thank you very much.